Obviously, a big game, homecoming game, a big game. For us, evening game. I look this past week. I thought our team played with a lot of intensity, and I think a lot of that has to do with our fan base did an amazing job for us. And go back to I know it's an SEC game. Go back a couple weeks ago to the last non-SEC game at home. We need that home field advantage. I think South Alabama coming out second half. We came out slow. The stadium was slow. All of that stuff. We can't play that way as a team. We need our fan base to have the same energy and home field advantage that we had this past weekend. I think that's going to be real critical and a challenge to us on homecoming to give us that great home field advantage. Going to be obviously a very difficult challenge. Good team that knows how to win on the road. Won a nail biter last weekend on the road. It's gone, and they blew out Georgia Tech on the road. So they know how to win in these type of games. So obviously going to be a big challenge for our guys this week's game, and we're going to need great leadership from our guys and keeping the focus and dealing with the attention. The great thing is for a lot of the young guys, this is their first situation in this type. Where we're dealing with the adversity of success. That goes both ways. But our older guys have been in a similar situation, so we need their leadership to really come through and continue the focus and have the maturity to focus through a long football season. So nothing new on the injury front. We got out of the last game with bumps and bruises, but really it's the identical injury report to last week. So the guys that are kind of out are out, and the guys that are in. So there's Giles, there's like the Hunter Bradleys, there's some of the all the guys that are kind of out, been out, or they're still going to be out.
Tobias, when he was not in the game, you guys didn't score any points, and I think the time he was out in the second, third quarter, you guys only got like 77 yards, 10 yards in the third quarter. Just how important is he to keeping that offense moving when he is in the game?
I think he just, brings some leadership into that huddle and a little different demeanor. I don't think that he's critical. When you watch the film, you don't point and say, boy, it was the right guards the reason we didn't move the ball in these series. There's several different factors involved in it. I think he comes out in the second quarter and we don't move the ball. Well, first play we get a holding penalty, and secondly we're trying to run out the clock, and after that holding penalty realize we're not going to score. Third quarter we come out and are just sloppy. Tyler a missed read and we end up getting a sack and getting behind the chains. So, but I think the demeanor he brings in the team in his leadership. Here's a guy that didn't play a whole lot last year. Missed most of the season, didn't go through spring, minimally was held out of winter conditioning, minimal in summer conditioning, minimal in training camp, and yet still voted a captain by his teammates. It shows kind of the respect he has on the team, and so him being in the huddle, I think, uplifts the play of everybody around him.
I asked you this about a couple weeks ago, but have you noticed 6-0 and being tied for the top of the SEC West lead on October 15th is different in Starkville than it is in other places you've been at?
I think as I look at it, as a team. Unfortunately, I don't get out around town much during the season, but for our guys, this is a lot of what they expect coming into the season. To be in this situation, and as a program, it's what we drill on our guys to expect, and it's fantastic. You look at the goals that you hit. We're bowl eligible now for a third year in a row. This game gives you the opportunity, which I imagine you win this game, your third consecutive winning season. You kind of keep checking them off one game at a time, and within that focus, and it's our goal as the year goes on, and late October, November, you want to play in big games, and we're putting ourselves in a position to do that.
Going back to Tobias, Dan, the first play he comes in the fourth quarter, 20-yard run, y'all end up averaging like 5.1 yards a carry that quarter. Is that kind of when, I guess, the offense just kind of came to life at that moment?
I think that play was a huge lift for us. again, I mean, it certainly, I mean, he did his job on the play, but everybody else executed as well. But, I mean, that was a point where we had struggled. I think we'd had 2 straight 3-and-outs, and you're looking at a 3rd and 10 situation. And you got a big play. And even though we didn't score on that drive, I think that was a key play in the game because we ended up punting, pinning them deep. And, and then we kind of get our rhythm back and convert some 3rd downs after that. But, again, watching the film, it wasn't, oh boy, Tobias is in, and that's what made the difference. And I think his mindset certainly, though, helps the demeanor in the huddle.
You've talked about before, Jonathan Banks being the kind of, program building type of player. What is it about him, and what has he really done to sort of do that for you guys?
Well, I mean, he stepped in being a leader is what it is, and I think sometimes it's a tough job for a guy that played a lot as a freshman. When John got to come in, he had to worry about playing, and you had Jamar Chaney, you had Derek Sherrod, you had Anthony Dixon, you had leaders. He comes his sophomore year, and you have Pernell McPhee and KJ, and those type of guys leading. And I think last year we lacked some of that real outspoken vocal leadership. And here's a guy that's really, I think he saw that on the team, and was a guy that didn't have to be a leader, even though he was on the field a lot, didn't have to be a leader. Sometimes a lot of those leaders develop with the guys that are leading their group. And, hey, I'm the leader with the twos. I'm the leader on the scout team. And I really built up my leadership ability then. And John was surrounded by the other leaders, and he was the guy being led. And I think he came back this year, and the mindset he came back with was, I want to be a great player, and I want to lead this team and leave my mark on the program and do great things for the program, not just as an individual player, but as a team and as a leader of that team. And that's where he's really stepped up, and he backs it up. He backs it up with his performance at practice. He backs it up with how he carries himself and his work ethic in the weight room and training, and he backs it up with his performance on game day.
Coach, obviously you've talked about him having some of the best hands on the team with Malcolm Johnson, but I mean, to see him come back in his first game with obviously having game rust, but to make 2 big catches like he did, talk about that.
Well, it's huge. I mean, it's funny sometimes. I mean, you expect those things from Malcolm. I mean, he does have such great ball skills. And even in practice, I mean, you see him make those catches. Some of the easier ones, that's where, I get almost more nervous with some of the easier ones because that's just that focus and getting back into the rhythm. But with his injury, too, he's had a lot of time working hands because he can't have contact. So that jugs machine was fired up shooting balls at him since the first day of training camp, an awful lot. And but it does help. He is, and you see that on Saturday. He can be a mismatch guy because as a tight, he has the athletic ability as a tight end that he creates some matchup problems when he gets on linebackers. And with the ball skills he has, I know he has, Tyler's got a lot of trust. He's going to put that ball out there in a position where he has the opportunity to go make the catch and trust that he can go make some spectacular catches.
Coach, your other coaches talk a lot about complementary football, and it looks like your team does a nice job of that with the defense not having to carry the offense and vice versa. I was just wondering if you felt you guys do a good job of that.
Well, we do. That said, we win as a football team, and we always talk a lot about that. And there's a lot of crossover when you get into games of what our game plan is. And, we've always been that way as a program. Go back a couple years ago, I remember we went down to Florida. And we thought, we can play we're playing some pretty good defense. They had a great secondary, and why did we run it? What did we run? 42 consecutive plays. We wanted to play to our strength and not to their strength. And, it takes a very unselfish mindset as a team to do those things. Where, hey, offensively, some games we're not trying to maybe light up the score, but I want to score as much as possible. But, within the plan, we want to control the tempo of the game. We want to control the clock. And other games we're going to have to score a bunch of points, and I think same goes defensively. Hey, we want to take some shots on offense. We got to be ready to go respond on defense to that. And when you have the team approach to everything that we do, I think it works very well. And the key to it is just having no egos, whether you're within the staff or on the team, that everybody knows, hey, 42-41 or 3-2. As long as we're on the winning edge of it, everyone's celebrating in the locker room.
And Coach, you just said a few minutes ago, Middle Tennessee is familiar with playing in this type of situation. Do you address to your players this may be a potential for a trap game, if you will, or is there any additional focus or energy?
No, I mean, every game's a trap game. I mean, we had a trap game Saturday, we had a trap game the week before, and every game you get into, there's always if you don't bring your focus in college football today, you're not going to win. And you don't have focus on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you're not going to have focus on Saturday. You're going to play like you prepare. And so you have to have unbelievable focus all week. And, with the balance in college football today, it's evident that, if you are not focused, you're not going to win the game. I don't know if any of, maybe one or two teams in the country, they could just roll the ball out there, have a bad week of practice, and say, we're going to play bad and sloppy and still win the game. You better be on your game if you want to win.
This team's obviously proven it can win those low-scoring games just because the defense is so good. But do you think it was important for Tyler Russell, for the offense, to win a shootout, to score 40 points and outscore somebody down the stretch?
I think it helps. I think, but going into that game, as I said, as a team game, we expected that. We came in on Monday and said, we're going to have to score a bunch, points. This team can light up a scoreboard with anybody in the country. And as I said, and they showed that Saturday night. You look at that team. I still view Tennessee as a top 25 team. I'd be shocked if there's some conferences out there, they'd probably be in first place playing in some conferences. The talent that they have, and that just shows the depth of the Southeastern Conference, how tough this league can be. But we knew on Monday that we were going to have to score points, and that was an emphasis as you get into the game. We wanted to try to control the tempo of the game and be ready to have to score a lot of points, and I think we did both on the offensive side of the ball to help with the defense. And we, defensively we did, and they outrushed us. But we kept the ball as much as possible out of their playmakers' hands, because you saw when their playmakers got it in their hands what they were capable of doing. So, to me, overall, the plan that we had as a team, we hit it on Saturday.
Dan, the penalties for y'all are kind of down this year. I think you're tied for ninth in the country in least penalties. Is that just a product of experience, maturity? What would you attribute that to?
A little bit leadership at the practice field and focus. I think a lot with focus on a team, and it attributes to a bunch. When you start with the leadership, setting a tempo at practice and demanding the focus and attention to detail at practice, I think when you have that, you get in those situations, you're prepared in games, you're locked in and focused on game, and you avoid those silly issues. Now, we need to continue that. We're only at the halfway point of the season, and as you go, and you're going to get bumps and bruises. More guys are going to have to play as you continue to go, and as the long season, you have to continually get more focused. I think that's one thing that you look at in college football. When you go through the 12-week period of the regular season, or 13 weeks with the bye week, the teams that come out on top are those teams that can continually manage to perform at a high level week in and week out. They don't come out and just completely lose a focus on who you are as a team, and they lose your execution. And for us, it's taking care of the football, not making silly mistakes, staying on schedule on offense, and playing great defense.
You're undefeated. You're number 12 in the BCS rankings. Obviously, you have a big game in 2 weeks, but do you guys talk at all, bring up the words national championship with your team in the locker room?
It's out there, but to me, I've done it enough. We bring up the words SEC championship. If we win the SEC West, and we're fortunate enough, then you have the opportunity to do something like that. As I've said before, and I can tell the team, In my coaching career, I've been undefeated once. We didn't get the chance to play for the national title. I have 2 national championship rings, but my only undefeated season, we didn't get an opportunity to play for it. So that is completely out of our control. So to worry about something that you have absolutely no control over is useless. We do have control over winning the SEC West, though. And if we do that, I imagine great things will happen for us, and we'll be rewarded accordingly.
Dan, you're third in the league in allowing big plays on offense, 20 plays of 20 yards or more. Is that just leadership and veterans in the secondary, or is that does it kind of bleed from the back to the front, or how do you look at that?
Well, I think it helps. I mean, one, defensively, part of our scheme certainly helps with that. You know, and I think our defensive coaches do a good job of that. You know, one big thing, and we made a big deal in the offseason, we wanted to create more 3-and-outs this year. Without sacrificing giving up the big plays. You know, I think we did a great job last year of making teams have to work for everything they had and drive the length of the field on us, not give up the big play touchdowns. And now part of that, I think, you know, when you look time of possession, some of those things, we were giving up drives but not points, never putting the offense in a position with good field position. I think we've managed that goal, and I think our defensive staff has done a good job of improving in an area without taking away from another area. And I do think it certainly helps with having the experience you have in the secondary of, you know, because a lot of times big plays are a result of somebody making a mistake. You know, a misalignment, or someone fitting the wrong gap, somewhat, you know, I mean, poor communication with the corner saying one thing and the safety thinking something else. And the experience aspect certainly helps to cut down on those mistakes you have that give up the big plays.
We talk about Malcolm Johnson. We talk about Marcus Green, who's on the Mackey Award watch list. Obviously, he's a consistent threat for you, but you went back to the tight end a little bit this week. Does it excite you a little bit what you can do now with Green in there alongside Johnson and some of these formations?
I think it just helps, but it doesn't change what we've done. We didn't really change our approach this week than we have in weeks past. And I know it seems like, I mean, on the naked eye watching and saying, wow, they got the ball to the tight end. They gave us the tight end a little bit this week. And I think that, more than anything else, is the result of seeing those guys. Now, having Malcolm back and having more depth, it allows you as a coach that you're going to look to expand on those packages, because you're not limited if you can put 2 tight ends on the field now, because, you know, before, when we were rolling into a game with 3, one goes down and you're starting to be nervous about the whole package. As you get a guy healthy back, you can expand on those packages a little bit more and be a little bit more creative with it. But, you know, if they take the tight end away this week, they're not going to get that many catches. If they give us the tight end, he's going to get a bunch of catches. And that's the one thing I think Tyler's done a fantastic job is disperse the ball. You know, I mean, he does not hone in on trying to get the ball to anybody in particular. He's going to see what the defense gives him and take what they give us. Yeah. That's always tough. You know, I mean, when you have a star player go down, the psyche it hurts with the team is sometimes tough. But also, I think the team does rally around that guy, and I think you have the opportunity to see some extraordinary performances. I know their backup tailback's a very highly recruited player. I think transferred from LSU. You know, I mean, and I remember, I mean, a highly recruited player. So, you know, there's talent there, and, you know, I think that'll be a rallying cry for him.
Thanks, Coach.